What Lonzo Thinks is a wide range of discussion where I offer up my unsolicited opinion about everything from music, film, television, sports, religion, politics, you name it. If it's happening, I'm talking about it. All right, next on my PRinCE reviews is Batman, which is the 11th studio album of PRinCE's career. Or if you count the Black Album in the timeline, it would be the 12th, just depending on where you place it. What I'm doing is a retrospective review of every PRinCE studio release from the beginning, sadly, until the very end. And what I'm generally doing is going over each song, giving my brief snapshot opinion and an overall analysis at the end. Now, Batman was released on June 20th, which is the day before my birthday, coincidentally, 1989. It coincided with the release of the mega hit blockbuster film Batman, which starred Michael Keaton and Kim Basinger and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Now, back in 1989, this was before the whole superhero craze was like it is now, where you got these movie franchises that makes billions and billions of dollars and is worldwidely recognized as a huge, probably the most prominent form in film right now as far as popularity and revenue. Well, back then, other than I think the Superman films with Christopher Reeve, superhero films really weren't the rage, and the ones that were getting released weren't very good at all. So when the Batman film, which was directed by Tim Burton, came along, there was a huge swell of anticipation for it, because when you have someone like a Jack Nicholson, who was a huge movie star at the time, and Michael Keaton and Kim Basinger, people like that, you get really excited about it. Plus, the advertising and marketing for this film was tremendous, and there was just a huge anticipation for it. I remember back in, I think, like late 88, early 1989, when they started the marketing for the film, all they did was just release the Batman symbol. And it had this shroud of mystery behind it, and it just made us want more and more and more. Plus, it being the first really true Batman film in decades, we were really excited about it. And then when the trailers got released and the footage started getting released, I mean, everybody was like hyper excited for the film. I mean, it was just a craziness back then for this film. And being a film lover like myself, and a huge Batman fan, I was definitely amped to see the film. So when it was announced that PRinCE was doing the soundtrack, I got even more excited about it. I was like, hey, this is going to be like a cultural phenomenon that I definitely cannot miss. And PRinCE actually signed on to do the project because he was signed to Warner Brothers at the time. And of course, Warner Brothers produced the film as well. So it was a match made in heaven. Now, the initial rumors were that it would be a compilation done by both PRinCE and Michael Jackson. But that wasn't actually true, and I'm glad it wasn't, because I don't think PRinCE would have ever done anything with Michael, especially after the whole Bad thing fell apart, where he and Mike had a bit of a disagreement as far as how that whole song would come down. So him doing anything with Michael at that time was just totally off the table. But anyway, it was unfounded, and it was just a rumor. It was stated that PRinCE would do the up-tempo songs and that Michael would do the ballads. And like I said, PRinCE was just never been the control freak he is. Ain't happening. So he did every song, of course. He wrote and composed each song, obviously, from his catalog. Having songs for anything is just easy for PRinCE, because he's PRinCE. He's always recording. He always has content to fit pretty much anything. But he wrote songs specifically for the film, and also used some previous songs that he hadn't used on other albums, and kind of reworked them to fit the motif of the Batman soundtrack. And I will kind of preface this by saying that this is the time where PRinCE, in my opinion, took a little bit off his fastball and started to pander and lose it a little bit. But I think in this regard, it's not really pandering, because he was doing it for a film, and of course you have to market the film, and everything had to tie into it commercially. So I understand why he had to do the things that he did, because he was contracted to do so, as far as ownership of the music, and also with the marketing. He was tied into a lot of different things. Now the film was obviously highly successful. It was the highest grossing film of 1989, and one of the highest grossing films of all time. I think it grossed well over $250 million worldwide, which back then was huge. Now you got films easily earning that much in their first couple of weeks out, and earning over $1 billion in the worldwide run. But back then, that was a huge dollar amount, and it was setting records all over the world. And the album was just as successful, selling over 11 million copies worldwide. And of course, it went to number one and spawned a number one hit as well. So it achieved everything that Prince wanted to achieve, as far as commercially and artistically as well. And like I said, it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest album of 1989. So with that said, let's jump into the minutia. Now, the first tune from the album is "The Future," which once again I'll point out that each of the songs tied directly into the film, of course, and the songs were actually sung from the perspective of certain characters. Some songs were sung from the perspective of Bruce Wayne, the Joker, or Vicky Vale, which I thought was kind of an ingenious way of doing things by Prince. But then again, he's a musical genius, so I expect nothing but the best from him. Now, "The Future," of course, is a really, I call it a spooky type of a song. It sounds futuristic. It has a dark, menacing tone to it, and it fits the dark, menacing tone of the film as well. And of course, Prince is singing from the perspective of Bruce Wayne, I believe Bruce Wayne / Batman, in regards to this particular song, and about the bleakness of the world in the way that he sees it, and Batman's need to try to fix it in his one-man crusade against crime and corruption in Gotham City. Now, the song itself is a great song. It's the spookiness of it really. It's a song that I refer to as a dark song, where if you listen to it with lights out, you just close your eyes and it just kind of, it kind of takes you into that world. And of course, if you've seen the film, then you definitely can relate it to what it's trying to pronounce within that song and highlight within the film itself. So it is a great song within the construct of this particular soundtrack. Next up is "Electric Chair." Now, "Electric Chair" is my favorite tune from this album, and actually, "Electric Chair" is a song that was previously recorded in the early 80s by Prince, and actually reworked for the film, and it is told from the perspective of the Joker. And it is a evil song, a deep and menacing song, so to speak, whereas Prince is basically talking as the Joker, and about him being punished for his future crimes. And the lyrics say it in itself in the chorus. If I can be considered guilty for the things that go on in my mind, give me the electric chair for all my future crimes. So it definitely fits the film, and it has a rock synthesized type of a feel to it, and it's one of his stronger rock tinged songs of the middle part of Prince's career. And this kind of where this album falls in the kind of like the midsection of his storied career. But I think by far "Electric Chair" is the best song on this particular release, and it's something that's definitely not to be slept on. Next up is "The Arms of Orion," which is a duet with Sheena Easton. And this song is sung from the perspective of Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale. And "The Arms of Orion," I'm going to be honest, I don't like it at all. I probably heard this song 5 times in my life, and it's just not an engaging song to me. I understand what he's trying to say with it and where he's going with it as far as in the construct of the film. It's referring to the relationship between the two characters, Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale. It's a love ballad, of course, but this song is not good. Skip it. I skip it every time. Just not good. It's a nice effort, but not good. Party Man next. Now, Party Man was the second most popular song from this album commercially. It made the top 10 of the R&B chart, made the top 20 of the pop chart, and it's a fun kinetic song. It's told from the perspective of the Joker, and the Joker being menacing and jokester and destroying stuff. And if you remember the film, that's when he's in the museum, kind of defacing the film. The museum in the film. And it's a ditty. It's a pop ditty, and it serves its purpose. I'm not a huge fan of Party Man at all. It has a nice hook to it, a nice beat. The video was fine. It's a blah song. I mean, it really doesn't do much for me. But it was a very popular song because it did hit all those right notes that it was intended to hit. So it was a hit song commercially, just not something I really got into. Not a bad song, just not a song that I got into personally. So and following up The Arms of Orion, these are two songs that I generally can skip. Next up is Vicky Waiting. Now, Vicky Waiting was initially titled Anna Waiting, which was at the time his girlfriend Anna Fantastic / Anna Garcia. And of course, this is a song that was reworked from the early 80s along with Electric Chair. And Vicky Waiting, of course, is dedicated to Vicky Vale. And it is, to me, the second best song on this release, right behind Electric Chair. And I love this song. I love the lyrics. I love the music. I love the arrangement. I love the composition. It's just a really, really good song. And it has probably my favorite verse from any song on this particular release. Whatever floats this Joker's boat is whatever this Joker will bang. I just love that the arrangement of that particular lyric. And like I said, it's a great song. Next up is Trust. And of course, this is another one of the Joker songs, and it's from the film where they have the big parade, and the Joker is in the third act, where it begins the third act, where Joker is really unfolding his plan to ruin Gotham City, and Batman trying to stop him. And Trust is a fun song. It's probably the most kinetic song on this particular soundtrack. But once again, it's not a song that I crave to hear, and I've generally, if I'm listening to this LP, is one that I can take it or leave it. Sometimes I'll listen to it, sometimes I won't. It's not a bad song. It's not something I really get into. Now, next is Lemon Crush. Lemon Crush. Where do I start? This is probably one of the worst songs Prince has ever done in his life. And I try not to hold it against him because it is for the soundtrack. But come on, he had to know this song was booty. It's a fucking awful song. And let me back up a little bit, because this particular song is and actually the album itself kind of coincides with the relationship that I was involved in at the time with this girl that I was very, very, very much in love with at the time, and I was trying to turn her on to being a Prince fan, and Lemon Crush didn't help. She hated Lemon Crush. At the time, I liked it, and I played it a lot, and I think I played it so much, or liked it, because she disliked it, and I like kind of torturing her with it. But this is the one. If I'm being honest, this song is not a good song at all, and it has probably the worst lyric of any song that Prince has ever written. And it goes, if I'm working at my jobber, I'm the victor, you're the robber. No matter how much I try to stop her, I can't help but think about you. Oh my God, that is just awful. It's like he was probably in the studio, didn't know what to say, what to do, where to put it. He just kind of came up with something and said, F it, I'm just going to drop it and move on, because that is a fucking awful lyric, just terrible. Postscript, My buddy, the late great Sean Hill, also professed that this is his least favorite Prince song as well, and he would constantly harp on that lyric as well, and that's one of the things that he and I totally agreed on. That Lemon Crush is an awful song, and that is the worst verse in the history of Prince songs, and I'm sure he wasn't real proud of it, because I don't think I ever heard him do it live or even really mention the song. It never turns up on anything. So I think anyone who knows music knows that this song is fucking awful, and it really doesn't deserve any recognition whatsoever. And it's something that I'll still listen to from time to time just to get a laugh out of it, but it's effing awful. Scandalous. Now, Scandalous is one of Prince's most famous love songs. And once again, it's a song that he had previously recorded in the early 80s, and it's one of his best ballad slow jams, especially from the latter part of his career. Of course, Scandalous is a love ballad meant for Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale, and it's kind of hard to describe other than the fact that it's a very good song. It's just a great slow jam, something you can listen to with your girl, and really it doesn't even have to tie into the film at all. I don't think it even mentions any of the characters, but it does relate to the relationship that Bruce and Vicky Vale would have to have, because he's Batman and he's anonymous, and it would have to be a scandalous type of a relationship because he can't tell her who he is. So it definitely fits the construct of the soundtrack in itself. And finally, it's Bat Dance. Now, Bat Dance was the biggest hit, bigly hit from this particular soundtrack. It went to number one, basically across the board. It was a worldwide smash, and it was the first release from the LP as well, from the soundtrack as well. And it's a song that I can take it or leave it. It directly ties into the film, so you really can't even listen to it outside of the context of this film. And of course, it's totally dated because the film was back in 1989. There's been a lot of Batman films since then, and it's just a dated song. It has a dated sound to it, a dated feel to it. I didn't really like it very much when it was first released, and I like it even less now. And I probably heard that song once in the past 10 years, and it's not something that I really crave to hear. It's more of a medley of than anything else. It's snippets taken from the film, and with a driving, house-driven pop techno synth beat to it. So the song really doesn't even have any lyrics. It's more of an instrumental, like I said, with interpolations or samples taken from the dialogue of the characters in the film. So once again, within the construct of the soundtrack, it's a perfect song. It is the perfect opening single from this particular LP because it gets the fans excited about the film itself, and that is what it was intended to do. So in that regard, bravo, Prince, great work. It worked. It was a number one hit song, and it helped the album become the hit that it was, and also got everybody really excited for the film. So in that regard, it's a perfect song, but as a work of musical art, it is not. So you can take it or leave it. I choose to leave it. And that is it for the Batman soundtrack. 9 tracks from the soundtrack. And overall, you know, it's the LP that you can take it or leave it. And as I've mentioned, the songs that I like the most are the songs that weren't even specifically written for the soundtrack. There are songs that were from earlier recording sessions that Prince had done many, many years prior to, which is Electric Chair, Vicky Waiting, and Scandalous. So that should tell you something about where Prince was at this time in his career. He was actually, I won't say struggling to get a hit, because the Batman soundtrack followed Love Sexy, and Love Sexy was one of his least commercially successful albums, even though it had a huge hit in Alphabet Street, but it didn't sell as well as some of his previous releases. So his career was in a bit of a downturn as far as commercially, not artistically, I don't think, but commercially he was in a downturn. So he really needed something to kind of spark it, and the Batman soundtrack exactly did that. It really revitalized his popularity in pop culture and also commercially on the album charts, because it sold 11 million copies. That's a huge worldwide smash hit. You can't deny it. It put a lot of loot in his pocket and really made him, it took him to the forefront of the music industry once again and made him the talk of pop culture for basically the whole summer of 1989, because the film ran like forever, and the film, like I said, was a huge worldwide hit. So every time you heard Batman, you heard Bat Dance, and you heard the PRinCE songs, and these songs resonated throughout that whole period. So marketing strategy wise, career wise, great move. He never really talked much about it, because I think from a commercial standpoint, I think he felt like he kind of sold out a little bit. I think he did. He took the check, but he'd have been an idiot not to. I think anyone, I don't care what kind of artist you are, and you got an opportunity to have that type of exposure and get those type of record sales, you better take it. If you don't, you're a freaking idiot. I don't care who you are. And it was a wise business decision by PRinCE to do so. Doesn't mean that the album was great, because it's not. And but it fit what he was trying to do. So that's why I'm so torn, and you can really take it or leave it, because the album itself just really wasn't the thing that really kind of pulled you back into PRinCE's corner, I don't think. It kind of, once again, is something that you can take or leave. And I as you can tell, but I'm just kind of conflicted by this whole line of thought when it comes to the Batman LP. Now, this is where I think, and I've said this before in closed conversations, I think this is where PRinCE starts to lose his fastball. I really do. Not from a standpoint of him making groundbreaking, cutting edge music that resonated, but more so from a standpoint of him not being on top of his game, so to speak. And this is where I think he started overproducing his tracks. And I'll save that for a later discussion. But during this part of his career, during the midpoint of his career, PRinCE totally overproduced a lot of his tracks, and he ruined a lot of songs, in my opinion, from overproduction. And I think he was kind of reaching a little bit to try to stay relevant and trying other things that other artists were doing, where he wasn't really setting trends, he was following trends, which was kind of sad, because PRinCE was always a trendsetter, especially the early part of his career, of course. And during this part of his career, I think he was listening a little bit too much to what people were saying about him, people in his corner maybe saying, and listening too much to the radio, and kind of feeling that he had to kind of keep up versus people having to keep up with him. So he really started to overproduce his tracks, and that's something that I did not. And this is where he kind of, like I said, kind of lost his fastball and didn't really do the things that we had become accustomed to him doing as PRinCE fans. And I can't really fault him for it, because nobody stays on top forever. You can't be number one forever. You're gonna become complacent at some point. You're gonna lose your creativity. I don't care how great you are, and you might need something to stimulate it to take you back to the top. And I think this is where he was in his career. But as I said, I'll talk about it more on some future podcasts, as far as this dip in his career and how he started overproducing his tracks. But songs like Lemon Crush, Trust, and a little bit The Future, totally overproduced. I think Bat Dance was overproduced as well. He just put too much in it. He just kind of just threw shit at the wall and hoped that something would stick. And that was really kind of discouraging as a PRinCE fan. And no matter how much I like him, I got to be honest, and call him out when I think that his music was not up to his standard, and at this time it wasn't. So the Batman soundtrack is not a go-to release for me. It's something that, if I listen to it, I'm just listening to 3 songs, and that's Electric Chair, Vicky Waiting, and or Scandalous. And whenever I'm doing like a mixtape or something, those are the three songs I will pull from it. But those other songs I don't. The only other song that I may have a bit of an affinity for is The Future, which on a scale of 1 to 10 on this album is a dead middle 5. So it's not something that I kind of get away from, but it's not something I seek out either. But if it's on, I'll listen to it. I just won't, it's not a song that I would tend to skip, so to speak. But once again, in relation to the album release itself and the film release, it was a perfect, I guess, confluence of events that really helped PRinCE's career from a commercial standpoint. And as far as the movie goes, I loved the movie when it first came out. Now I can't stand it. But at that time in my life, the Batman movie was one of the best films I'd ever seen. I loved it. I loved Michael Keaton as Batman. I loved Jack Nicholson as the Joker, Vicky Vale, everything about it. It was just a great film. I remember my girlfriend at the time, whom I was talking about earlier, she actually got tickets to the midnight screening of the film. And back then, that was the first time I'd heard of a midnight screening for a big blockbuster film. So we went to Santikos Theaters in San Antonio, Texas, she and I, at midnight to watch this film. And we sat on the front row, and it was just a great experience. And that was a birthday present, I guess, that she had given me. Thanks a lot for that, Kelly. I really appreciate it. It was a great birthday gift. So in that regard, I'll never forget this whole Batman period and everything, because it ties directly into a relationship that I was in with someone that I was very, very deeply in love with. So in that regard as well, it holds a special place in my heart. So that's it. So what do you think? Comment below. Let me know what you think. whatlonzothinks@gmail.com, Twitter @whatlonzothinks. Hit me up. Let me know what you think. Your thoughts and comments are coming in fast and furious and heavy, and I really appreciate it. I mean, I get a lot of comments, especially from PRinCE fans who are definitely signing in and listening to my podcast. I need more subscribers though, so please subscribe as well. Don't just listen, also subscribe. But I'm getting thousands of hits, so I do appreciate that, and I appreciate the feedback more than anything else, because you guys are listening, and your feedback is directly tied into what I'm saying. So that lets me know that you're listening to everything that I am saying, unsolicited or not. So I really appreciate it. Keep it coming. Hit me up on Patreon. Drop some loot on me. I do appreciate that as well. But once again, Batman, the soundtrack, PRinCE. Not good, but I like it anyway. Because of those 3 songs, it's a pass. So give it a listen. Tell me what you think. Hit me up. This is what Lonzo thinks. Bye.